one of the things I do remember you saying is that you have an infinite capacity for love and knowledge, and that's true, right? You don't, my middle daughter.
That is, I have that is something I will go to my grave. I want to put on my. I'm not going to have a grave, but I want people to take that you can always get smarter and you can always have more love. And if you just chase those.
Welcome. It's Rich Rockland. I'm here with an old friend and one of my
Okay, man, I'm not that old.
older. I've known you a long time. Jay Ruane, who is one of my guys and one of the people that I routinely call, and so I wanted to have him on and learn about what he does and how he might be able to impart some wisdom on all of us. So good to see you, buddy.
Sure. It's good to see you, buddy. Thank you for having me. I think we should start off with letting your audience know that I am one of your guys. I'm happy to take your call. You've never needed to call me for yourself.
Well, that's right. Yeah, I don't get into criminal.
I think we need because a plumber that you have on, or some other lawyer maybe, but I'm the friend that nobody wants to have.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I mean, in a criminal defense sense, true, but in terms of you have multiple hats, right? You're also a consultant, a mentor. Like you have lots of advice. You've given me advice on parenting, on having more children, on building a business. So yeah, in that sense, you're my guy. So wow, where do we start? So Jay is a lawyer who has a business that's sort of based in the sort of New Haven, Fairfield County area, but you cover the state. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, we're at a point now where, Hartford is huge for us. We've got offices in Hartford, New Britain. We opened one this week in New London. We looked at space yesterday in Middletown. We've got New Haven, Bridgeport, Shelton. We are growing by leaps and bounds. It's nice to be in a situation where we can't keep up with the number of calls that we're getting. I think it goes back to the years of dedication we've had to our craft is now being recognized by the community.
Well, let's back up a second because I want to sort of put a personal touch to this. So you're a Connecticut guy, right?
Yeah, I was born in New Jersey.
Okay,
but came here when I was 6 months old because my father got a job as an investigator in the public defender's office. So they brought me here. My father then decided to go to law school. So I've been here. I grew up in Bridgeport. I still call Bridgeport my home, even though I live in Trumbull now. But I am Bridgeport born and bred. And so I think that led me to focusing on criminal defense as a career because number one, my father was already in it, but also because that's the kind of people that I grew up with, and I wanted to help them out.
Right. And so you move here when you're young. I've met your sister and your brother. Do you have any other siblings?
Nope, just the two of them.
Just the two
my
of them.
My brother is based in New Haven. He does web design. And my sister's in Jersey. She's a teacher.
She's a teacher. That's right. And so you sort of followed in your father's footsteps, who's a legend in terms of Connecticut lawyers and is still practicing. He's right. He's a criminal defense guy. Always has been.
Yeah, he's down the hall from me as we speak. And we looked at the calendar today, and he asked if he could cover a 2:00 remote hearing. And I said, sure, you can do it. It means I won't have to put on a tie. He loves being a lawyer.
And how old is he?
75.
And how long has he been practicing?
Started in 77. So, we are
48 years.
7 years. Yeah, 48 years. Yeah. Wow. God, 48 years being a lawyer.
Well, I think that's 47. No, he'll be 47. Yeah, I'm 48. I was born in 75. So, okay. Wow. So so it's not like, it's not like you bring him into sign papers that he signs every day. Like he's very much sharp and can try a case Rich, if he needed to.
We go out to lunch. And all he wants to talk about is case law, strategy, planning for the next cross-examination he gets to do. He loves talking about this stuff. I'm like, okay, how are we going to do the business? Who do we need to hire?
You want to figure out when your next vacation is at this point.
Right, exactly.
Your old man wants to know when the next trial is.
We have a case that was exposed today up in Middletown, and we had to fight to keep him from driving there for just a jury call. Like nothing was going to happen. The case was going to get continued. But he's like, I'll go cover it. I'll be there. He loves going to court.
And he loves being a lawyer. And are you the oldest of the three kids?
I am.
All right. So What's the age difference between you and the two others?
So I'm 5 years older than my sister, 6 years older than my brother. So
Okay. So
they had me young. Moved to Connecticut. He got a job. Went to law school. He got out of law school and my sister was then
is
born.
your mom around still?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, and she's not a lawyer, right?
she's not a lawyer. She was an elementary school teacher for years. Big into science for kids. She retired about a decade ago, and she,
But they've been married 50
she's
years,
still
right? I mean,
yeah, they got married 50 years as of last December of 2021.
wow. So
Yeah.
so as a kid, right? Obviously, your dad is a huge male influence. You see him, lawyering. When do you start like did you start having an interest at a young age about what your dad did? I mean, my son asks about it all the time. He says he wants to work with me, and of course, it's the greatest thing to hear. Um, I mean, did you have the sort of the same kind of feelings?
Well, I mean, in a way, I kind of was working with him all along. So what you need to do is you need to go back in time and remember that back in the early 80s, there was a home phone. There was no
Right,
cell phones.
right.
There
You
was
and I are
no
about the
internet.
same age, right? I'm 48.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I'm 51.
Okay,
So, back then my father, our phone number was listed,
that's right. You just
you
look
know,
it up.
and you could just look it up. And inevitably, there were calls that would come in 7, 8 o'clock at night from the jail. And I would talk to the guy. I'd answer the phone, my father would train me as a kid, answer Ruane residence because you want him to know that it's not the office,
Right.
right? But you can. So I would talk to guys that were locked up every night. Hey, how you doing? I mean, I can remember some of them. A guy, his nickname was Cowboy. He promised he was going to teach me how to ride a Harley, and so I would talk to these guys as they were locked up, waiting. My father was doing some work or something, or waiting to get them. And they, kid, don't do what I did. You don't want to get in trouble. Stay straight, that type of thing. And I developed sort of this relationship with some of his clients. And we're talking, back then he was doing murder cases a lot more than he does now. And so some of these guys, they would talk every night. So I would talk to them every night before he got on the phone and develop those relationships with those guys, albeit minor. But for a little kid, it was a big deal to be talking to a guy who was in jail the night
And how
before.
old were you think this started?
I have 8 or 9.
Oh, right. Okay. That makes sense. And that was probably the coolest thing ever, right? You're talking to a guy
It,
in
it
jail.
was like I talked to a guy in jail last night on the bus, back to school. What did you do?
And
You
you
know,
and your mom was had a school teacher salary, but was your dad a successful lawyer in terms of making money?
Not at all.
No.
He was terrible at business. He
Okay.
still is terrible at
That's
business.
interesting.
Um,
So he's
I mean,
amazing lawyer, but not an amazing business person.
right, and part of the problem was he subscribed to the philosophy that if I just do good work, the
That's
business
right.
will come. And I want to flip that on his head because he never really had any desire to be a good business person.
He was
You
like,
know,
wasn't
I,
like Gandhi. Remember, Gandhi was a lawyer, if I remember right. And I
right.
think Gandhi would just go and like do good work and help people, but he went broke. Like he couldn't.
Well, I tell people that it's like being in business with Picasso. All he wants to do is paint. He doesn't care about where the paint comes from, what the paintings sell for. He just wants to paint, and that's him. He just wants to be a lawyer. And I
But
think one of the benefits of me joining this practice with him was that I got to scratch the itch on the business side, which I found interesting,
mm,
and it allowed me to provide him the opportunity to just do what he loves. I mean, for 26 years now, he hasn't had to think about writing a check, paying a bill, worry about digital marketing, building a website. He doesn't think about it. He literally gets a file and just gets to work it. And that's what he loves. So in that respect, I benefit from that.
interesting. But there is a component, is there not, that it doesn't necessarily mean the work will come. But I always tell people you could have the best marketing in the world if you're not doing good work and communicating with the clients. You're not going to have a business for very long. You think that's
Oh,
accurate?
absolutely.
Right. You still have to do the good
Absolutely.
work.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
you also have to have somebody help you with the business. So he wasn't good at that, but he's. I mean, I think he once told me, maybe, or you told me, he's probably tried 100 cases to jury.
Oh, easily. He's tried a case in every criminal courthouse in the state.
Every GA.
Every
Wow.
GA, every Part A.
Wow. So right.
Yeah.
So he's
Although he has not, I don't think he's tried a case in the new Torrington courthouse because it's only open.
a
Um,
couple years. Yeah.
only a couple of years, but and a lot of those years were COVID related. But every other courthouse, even courthouses that are closed now, he tried a case in Enfield. He tried to,
I
before
remember
they closed
Enfield,
that building.
Phoenix
You
Avenue.
know,
Yeah. So he was. So
so
he's the guy you can hand him a file, sit with him for an hour, and he can go in and try it and get a not guilty.
absolutely,
He's one of those guys that just has that talent where he just knows what to ask and what the jury's looking for. And
yeah.
I love it. All right. So at a young age, I mean, did you work in his office at all, or were you just answering
I
calls?
I didn't. He kind of pushed me away. I actually wound up working for another law
No,
firm.
I mean, as a kid, like, did you come in and like make copies, file
No, not
stuff?
really.
Right.
Not really. I think he kind of wanted me to come to it on my own if I wound up there. My role in his practice was after dinner he would sit down at our dining room table. He tried to eat dinner with us every night, which is important to him. It's also important to me. I know it's important to you. And after dinner, he would sit down, spread out his files on the dining room table, and get to work. And my job, I would make him tea every night around 8:30. Make him a pot of tea and bring him to him. That was my role in his practice. And so I just saw him doing a ton of work, and I knew that the career was a ton of work. It doesn't end at 5 o'clock, but I think that's why he wanted me to come to it on my own.
Right. And did you?
And that worked out
I mean,
well.
obviously, you understood by 8 or 9 that he was serving people, right? I mean,
Right.
it's not just you're going to punch a clock. You're doing service work that doesn't end when the bell rings at 5, right? It's not yabba dabba do, and then you get in your car and speed off. It's you're thinking about it as a lawyer, right? I mean, the good lawyers, I think, we think about cases, right? It sits in our head and we ruminate on it and we think about strategies and how we can help people that are facing the most difficult times of their lives, right?
Yeah, for sure. My father has a deep faith. I don't have the same faith that he does. He is really committed to works of mercy and visiting those in jail and really trying to help people. I don't have the same faith, but I do have a belief in being a man for others. I was educated by the Jesuits. And so that resonated with me. And so I think we found a symbiosis in his faith, but my action, and so we do the same thing, but we do it differently. And I think that it works out well. But yeah, when you're in this profession, it's a calling. And he gets excited about new areas of law that he can get into, and new areas of cross and new strategies and new approaches. I also find that intriguing. I find value in the business side of things as well. So it's been a great working relationship for the last 2+ decades.
So you go to college where?
University of Scranton in Pennsylvania,
Okay.
a city just like Bridgeport.
Yeah. I've been to Scranton. So you go to Scranton, you get your degree, and then do you take any time off, or do you go right to law school?
So no, I took some time off. I took 18 months off, and I worked at a law firm in Bridgeport that did criminal defense and some personal injury. So I started working for them, and I started to see how there was. I don't want to say it's mismanagement, but just they did not. They also did not have an approach to the business side of law. And so I just, I started to see, wow, seeing now as an adult, seeing how my father operated and seeing how this other law firm operated, I said, if we just applied simple business principles, there could be some better management of this firm. And so I decided to go to law school, and I commuted from Bridgeport up to Hartford every day because I knew that when I launched my practice, and originally I wanted to be a public defender because I didn't want to have to do the business, but I
Right.
knew that when I wanted to go out into the field of law, I wanted to maintain those connections that I had in the local community growing up in Bridgeport. So I didn't move up to Hartford for 3 years and just ignore everybody. I stayed on, with my friends locally, and that really helped me when I did launch because I had those connections for years.
So you go to UConn Law
Yep,
at night or
class of
day? Or
'98.
so I was class of 2000, so we overlapped.
Yeah, so I was a night student.
Oh, that's
Um,
right. I think you told me this. Yeah.
And I would drive. I would work all day at the law firm. I'd work 8 to 4, get in my car at 4 o'clock, drive up there, between 4 and 5, have class 6:30 to 9:15, then
Jeez.
drive home,
That's a
do it the
tough.
next
That's a
day,
tough racket.
and then I was also bartending on Thursday, Fridays, and Saturday nights, so I could pay, to eat. You need to eat and live. So I was bartending on the weekends. The great thing about the bartending was it was a college bar. I was getting paid to have a social life, so I didn't have a social life in law school because I was working, but I was still around young people having a good time.
And when do you meet your wife?
Not for a long time after. I didn't meet her until, so we've been together 15 years now. So I met her in 2009. I'd been practicing for 11 years at that point.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
So when you get out of law school, do you start your own shop? What do you do?
So no, I went in. I got a job as a public defender. I was making $100 a day as a per diem public defender, no benefits, and I was loving it. You got to take a historical look at this. Late 90s, so 98, 99, 2000, 2001 was probably the height of the drug game. If you ever watch The Wire, I mean that's the time frame that we're talking about. Street corner drug dealers, a lot of bad searches by police officers, hand-to-hand sales, that type of thing. So I got a job as a public defender. I was in Stamford for 3 months. Then I was in Derby for 9 months. Then I was in Bridgeport for a year. And I was hoping to get a job as a permanent public defender. That was my goal. I was going to be, do murder trials and that type of thing. And after about 2 years of being a public defender and bouncing around, getting $100 a day. I mean, at that rate, you're making 26 grand a year. I mean, you're not making a lot of money. I had friends who were making six figures coming out of law school, and here I was hustling for $26,000 a year. I got passed over for a job that I was told was going to be mine. So they gave the job to somebody else. And I don't.
Which GA were you in again?
I was in GA too. I was in Bridgeport.
Bridgeport.
Yeah, and so they gave the job to somebody else who I respect a lot of. The guy's a great lawyer. And I think probably at that point, he probably was the better choice to give the permanent job to. But I had been promised the job, and so I got my Irish up, and I walked in and I quit on the spot the day after I didn't get the job. So I quit and just said, "F you, I'm out of here." Walked down the street to my father's office, and I said, "I just quit." And he looked at me and says, "I don't know what you want me to do about it. I'm scraping by myself." And I said, "Okay, I guess I'm hanging a shingle." So that's what I did.
And this is how many years out of law school?
This is 2.5 years out of law school.
Right. So you have a job, you're making $100 a day, but it's something.
It's something.
It's steady.
Yeah, and I was picking up some work on the side from some of the private lawyers. Hey, write me this motion to suppress, and I'll throw you $500. I was hustling, right?
Mm-hmm. So you said you were hanging a shingle.
I was lucky because I had some friends who were still bartenders would buy me beers when I went out, so I didn't have to go out of pocket.
So what's your dad's firm called at that point? It's like law offices of.
It's Gaston and Ruane. Jim Gaston is a big PI lawyer down this end of the state, or AV rated, that type of thing. They formed a firm in name only, ran their books independently, but they were marketing themselves.
Share space
as a law firm.
and market together.
Mike Fitzpatrick, a phenomenal criminal defense lawyer, was a young lawyer at that time who was sharing space with them as well. And in the corner there was a broken desk, and they said, "Look, we don't have a job for you. We don't have any money for you, but you can use that desk." And I can remember I went out that day and I didn't have a cell phone back then. And I went out and I had to borrow $250 from my father to put the security deposit down on the cell phone.
I remember that. This was like Bell Atlantic days. Remember that?
Yep. Yeah. So I did that, hung the shingle, and then I immediately was told, "Well, you got to get in the phone book if you're going to do that." Called the phone company and they said, "The phone book closed last week. You can't get in.
We'll call you next year." What a crazy thing.
And then that was it. And so then I was just on the hustle. And
where are you living at this point? Are you with your parents?
I'm living with a bunch of buddies in Black Rock in Bridgeport. For paying $500 a month for rent.
Right. And so you have enough. You can sort of get by, but you're not. So what do you do? Like, do you go? How do you get work? What do you do to start finding clients?
Well, luckily, I had developed a bit of a rep as a fighter, as a local PD. So people sought me out. I trolled the hallways a bunch in those first couple of weeks. I did get some cast offs from other lawyers. When, back then 2 drug dealers come in, they can only represent
Conflict,
one.
right?
I can pick up the conflict work, that type of thing. And, I asked my father, I said, how can I make money doing this? And he said, the people who seem to always have money are the drunk drivers. And so I threw myself into drunk driving defense, and I said, I'm going to learn everything I can about it. And my brother at that point was a freshman in college, and he had just taken a how to build a website class. And he said, well, I can build you a website if you buy me the software that we learned in class. So I scraped up the $99 to buy Adobe PageMill and set out to work building a website. And that was the beginning of,
That's,
me learning digital marketing.
and that's where it
Yeah,
started. So so let's jump to where you are now, and then I want to go back to the journey a little bit. So now you are how many employees?
40.
40 employees. That
Yeah.
and how many of those are lawyers?
Uh, 12.
12 lawyers. Okay. And you do the habeas work too for the state still?
We do. However, we have we are no longer taking those cases. We're working out the caseload that we have, because I feel an obligation to those clients, and we have a couple ones that we think are winners. We've won a lot. We've exonerated 2 men on murder charges. We've won a lot of habeas cases, which is frightening.
Yeah.
That out of 150 cases, 2 men have been exonerated completely, which is frightening to think that percentage should not be that high. And So we're working out those cases. We'll take select ones in the future, but our GA practice and our Part A practice is exploding. So we're focusing on those clients right now.
All right. So what is, in your view, I guess they're two different things. What makes, like, when I say to you, what to you is, what are the elements of your constitution, of a person's constitution, that make them a good lawyer, regardless of the field?
So I think you need to have a long view and a short memory, because one of the things that we need to have, especially as criminal defense lawyers, but I think really as all lawyers, is that there are going to come instances when you get kicked in the teeth, and you lose something that you shouldn't have lost, or things don't break your way. But that happens in one client, and you're undoubtedly going to have 100 clients at a time. And so you need to have a short memory, because you can't ruminate on the negativity. You have to be able to focus on the positive, and be able to keep marching forward. And I think you need to have a long view, because early on in my career, I would get bogged down and be upset about, oh, there's a new judge who's sitting in this courthouse, and their numbers are going to stink, and my clients are going to be not served well. And yeah, that certainly does happen. And there were some judges that were hammers. But really, with the law, you can make some good progress in thinking about, where I want to be able to take my defenses? Where do I want to be able to take my clients, and start laying the groundwork in some cases early on that maybe go up, and or at least you establish some precedent at the local level, for how you're going to be treated and how you're going to defend your cases. So you have to realize that this is, I hate the phrase, but it's a marathon, not a sprint. Although it seems like you're running a marathon at sprint pace. I think you need to have to be a good lawyer, you need to have a long vision of where you're going, but also need to have a short memory for the setbacks.
Interesting. And in terms of, so when you go from, one lawyer, you're hanging up your shingle, and we've talked here with Ryan about, who is our friend Ryan McKean, who's a solo practitioner as well, and the what's involved there. You're not. It's not as, as lawyers are portrayed on TV. It's not as luxurious as
At
Hollywood
all.
portrays it, right? Although, as you and I know, that the guys that everyone makes fun of, the PI guys, are the ones that make the most money. That's sort of the funny part. Like, and that's the dirty little secret. Like, lawyers will tell you, like, oh, you're making fun of that guy as an ambulance chaser. That guy's got a $3 million house on the beach.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, I'm never going to be a millionaire. I'm never going to have a house on the beach. That's not my. That's not the life that I've chosen.
Yeah, yeah.
But I've got some good stories, and I can walk safely through any city in the state of Connecticut.
That's right, right. But
Overnight.
you can have, but look, you can make, like most lawyers, if they don't scale their practice or whatnot, unless they're in a very, they're in New York City and have they're a tax guy or something, they're not going to make a ton of money, but you can make more money obviously by scaling and having
Right.
the benefits of having employees and paying them well, but making a profit on their labor like any business does, right?
Sure.
You bill more than you pay them, and you pay your overhead, and then hopefully there's a little left over for you at the end, and you can do
Exactly.
that. Um, what do you see as um, in the next 5 years that where lawyers need to be if their business is going to be successful in terms of serving clients, getting new clients? What do you see as a sort of a couple of important things that they need to be doing in order to ensure that their continued success and survival?
So I think one of the things that I have identified is that with the aging boomer population, there are lawyers retiring every week, and so there is a massive need for legal services that may not necessarily be um, being filled. However, what I also know is that the consuming public is looking for a person who solves their problem and not a general practitioner. There are some lawyers I know that are desperately clinging to the general practitioner model where they're like, I'll take, and it's doorway law. I'll take a divorce, I'll take a closing, I'll take a low level criminal case, I'll do your bankruptcy. Um,
Bad.
and I
That's a minefield, brother.
it is, and it's not easy to be up to speed on everything in every practice area so that you're not committing major malpractice. And I think the consuming public also has matured, and they know how to do a Google search, they know how to compare reviews. And so I think that people who are holding on desperately to this um, small firm model of we'll do anything are going to slowly die on the vine because I mean, here's an example. If you were at home on a Saturday night and your toilet exploded or backed up or whatever, and you Googled, you know, services in the middle of the night, and somebody's website said, "I solve clogged toilets 24 hours a day. I can be at your place in an hour." Or somebody said, I do closets, new showers, I can do new construction, old construction. Who are you going to call?
Right. The
I'm going to call the
specialist.
guy who says, I solve your problem right now. And I think lawyers are afraid to commit to that. But I know lawyers like you, like me, like our friend Ryan, who have said, no, I'm going all in on this practice area and I'm going to be the best at it. I think the success comes and you're able to serve clients better, you're able to do better work, you're able to stress less about the operational stuff because anybody in my office can pick up and do a DMV hearing. If you had to do a DMV hearing,
Well,
Rich,
anybody could do a DMV hearing because you lose them all.
yeah, but we win. We're winning. I won 5 DMV hearings
Wow.
last
Out
year.
of how many though?
7.
Wow. Wait, 7 for the year, and you won 5?
Yeah,
Wow, that's great. I've
because
heard
I don't
those
really
numbers.
do them.
I heard
I just stepped in.
they're impossible to win.
Well, if you know how to win, that's the thing. Like we look into these things and try to find ways to win.
I see. No, that's
And
interesting because the best piece of advice, that you and Ryan ever gave me, and let's spend a couple minutes on this. This is an important point. Was to go all in. In other words, you know, as you know, I was a big law of finance guy, and then I got into this divorce stuff, and I really found that I had a knack for it, and I enjoy it, and I'm passionate about it. But I was still keeping some of my finance stuff alive because something comes in, you can make a couple bucks here, and you have a growing family, and you say, "Shit, I don't want to like turn away work because 5 grand, 10 grand. You're like, oh my god, like what am I going to do?" But if you can get over that fear and go all in, it's a remarkable feeling because one, as you said, you're laser focused. So you know all the people that do the work. You know the judges that rule on these things. You know where a case is going to land. You know every permutation of sort of the range of reasonableness and how to settle a case. And you get just so good at it that you're right.
Yeah.
And the work comes because people say to you, you the guy that does, and I use this when I meet with people and to close the deal, right? I sit with them. I say, look, I don't do wills. I don't do it. I'll send you to the guy. But like, this is all I do. It's a singular focus. We're not allowed to say, right? We're not allowed to say expertise, right? Or focus.
No, you can't say expert. Although I do want to put together the money to be able to say I'm an expert and fight the state bar on that. Because
Yeah.
I think I am an expert in Connecticut DUI law.
I think that's
I've
right.
tried more DUI cases than anybody else in the state has ever. I looked up the numbers. I've tried more cases. I have more appellate court decisions on that area. I am recognized in post-conviction proceedings as an expert in that area. Why I can't say it is just, it's just them, because they're old school lawyers. They don't want me taking business away from them.
No,
they want to say
there is something that should be dealt with on there, because right. I mean, so we have a singular focus, and then you're right. Operationally, it then becomes easier because one, your staff, the non-lawyer staff, is dealing with one type of intake. They can also address the clients. They can't give legal advice, but they can deal with day-to-day questions because they've seen it too, right? So they say, oh yeah, look, oh, that's it. This is how Rich is going to handle this. You got to get the advice from him or Ellie or Cindy, whoever's in our office. But this is kind of where this stuff lands. This is how we tackle this stuff. Obviously you got to talk to the lawyer about it, but you're right. Operationally, it makes more sense. And then you build a reputation amongst the judges and because you go in there and they just know that kind of where it's going to land.
Stuff.
You know your stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, think about it from that old doorway law firm. Rich, I have zero problem sending somebody to you for a divorce. I know you probably have a problem as I sent my brother-in-law to you, but the reality is I have no problem, because I also know you're not going to cannibalize that client from me.
Oh yeah.
But
right.
if I send him or her to another law firm that does general practice for their divorce, well, they'll say, well, we also do criminal. So if you get another case, you can come to us. And now there's a chance of me losing that client.
That happens all the time. You know what I hate? I get people that a lawyer shows up from a PI firm in a divorce, and I say, I know what's going on here. They don't want to refer it out because they're scared that that lawyer is going to pull the PI case, right? So they'll say, oh, we'll handle your PI. We'll take it off your settlement. You don't have to come up with any money. We'll handle your divorce. So I have this lawyer come in, and I'm like, I look the guy up, and I'm like, I've never seen the guy in court. I don't know anything. He doesn't know anything, or she doesn't know anything about how to do divorce stuff, and it's a nightmare. And they're trying to, and they don't know what's reasonable, what's achievable, how to maintain. You have to know in divorce, as you know, how to manage clients. You have to sometimes literally choke them, and say you stop the shit, and they don't know how to do that, and it's a nightmare. And it's because they don't want to lose the case, because they think if they send them to another lawyer, they'll talk them into getting, we get better results, we've got a bigger verdict, and next thing you know, you're fighting to lean the file for your fee.
Right, exactly. And I mean, I think that's just a disservice that the bar does to each other, because there are people stuck in that mindset.
So your advice, as I hear it, one of the pieces of advice is to focus and do one thing well.
Yeah,
Get out of the general business.
Chick-fil-A doesn't sell hamburgers for a reason.
Right.
They do great chicken sandwiches.
That's right.
You know what I mean? That's their thing, and they've gone all in on it. Chicken sandwiches and service. That's what they're known for. I would much rather be known as the person you call when you've been arrested, and he can help. He may not get the results that you want, but if I can't get those results, nobody can, because I've seen more. I've been through more. We have the experience, because just based on volume of cases over 40 years between my father and then me. I mean, we've seen it all, and we'll find a solution that works.
Right, and of course, in your field, it's a little different because you could cut deals with prosecutors. Like I can cut deals with the other side, which is different, because the other side has obviously the prosecutor has a duty to the state and to society.
Right.
The other lawyers, have a duty to their client. They have to look somebody in the eye, whereas the prosecutor is, there's a victim, or a complaining witness, I should say.
Right.
And they don't, if they know your reputation, they know you're not afraid to try a case and make trouble. They're willing to, and they know your reputation. They want to help you, and they want to give you a good deal because you see them every day. Right. I mean, that's a big part.
Well, and that's part of what how when I onboard new lawyers, I say, look, 50% of what we do is practice law. The other 50% is practicing personalities, getting to know your client, what resonates with them, and what they need out of this case, and also getting to know the prosecutors and the judges, how they react to these cases, what matters to them. Because for some, some judges, they would never take a plea on a DUI case and continue it for sentencing because they're scared that someone who has a DUI would go out, get drunk, get into an accident, kill somebody, and they will be caught in the crosshairs saying, why would you have let this person out if they had pled guilty? There are some judges that are absolutely afraid of that.
But why would you, what kind of deal is that? Like, why would you plead guilty and then delay sentencing?
Well, maybe you've got one in another courthouse, or maybe you just need to get, maybe you're going in to do the 48 hours, or a week in jail
the 48 hours.
Deal, and you want to, you need to get your affairs in order to be able to do that, right? And so, so you need to set it up so that someone's watching your kids, right? If you're a single parent, and you're not going to be able to do 100 hours of community service, so you figure I'd go in for a weekend, but I need to plead guilty and continue the case out. Some judges are deathly afraid of that. Other judges, that's not an issue, but they better have their fine money because that's a thing for them. And that's just knowing what matters to the people that are involved. And different prosecutors. I mean, I've tried cases against the same prosecutor, 3 or 4 times in different courthouses. Great trial lawyers for the state, just great. Mark Ramia, Jason Germain. These are lawyers who really know how to try a case. I mean, I had one trial with Jason Germain. There wasn't a single objection in the entire trial. It went so smooth. It was unbelievable.
I love those cases. Everything comes in clean.
It was great. But then when I go in there, I say, hey, look, I think we got an issue with this. They'll take a look at it and say, you know what, if you're saying there's an issue, maybe I got an issue. Let me take a look at it. And we're usually able to broker a resolution.
But let's focus on that because, as you know, the theme of my podcast, I'll Call My Guy. It's something that a theme that I talk to my colleagues about, I talk to my kids about is, and this is sort of my advice to them. And it's nothing novel or unique. It's just something I've sort of lasered in on. And there's a whole sort of backstory to my life why it's the case, but that's for another episode. But in any event, it's that relationships are everything. Not a little bit, not a part of it. They're everything. And I say that because, and it struck me as you're talking about your relationships, the power of the relationships that you've built with judges, with prosecutors, drives your success.
Sure, absolutely.
Right.
I mean, there's that catchphrase. I wish I came up with it. Your net worth is your net worth, and I mean, I truly believe that. I can call up Chambers and say, hey, look, I got an issue, Judge. I need another week or another 2 weeks to get the client where the client needs to be to resolve this. And judges know, okay, well, Ruane's never not held up his end of the bargain. And he's saying he needs something. I'll give him the time. I can take him at his word. And it goes, on both sides. I've had prosecutors who've, hey, this is my offer. I made you this offer. In retrospect, it's probably too generous, but I'm sticking with my offer because that's what I gave you. And you got your client on board with it. So we do it, and when you can honor your word and other people can trust it, it goes a long way in any career. I mean, I just had to deal with a contractor issue. I had a contractor who said, "Oh, I'm gonna build you cabinets by hand." And when after they got installed, we found the work order that he had ordered all the cabinets. I'm never using this guy again, because he gave me his word that he was building something special for me, and we paid for that. And then we found out that he paid 10% of what we paid him to buy them from a company.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. So in terms of the business, so let's go back to the question about the business. So we talked about specialization.
Yeah.
What about, where do you see, I know that you have an expertise in digital marketing and SEO. Yeah. Obviously you started with the phone book, which is pre-Google. And now,
I never got in the phone book. That's
right. You never got in. But you knew about that, and that's how you sort of did business. People would, you'd get out this big book, we'd keep it in our credenza, and I'd look through it. And of course, there's so many people, I had to explain to my son the other day that they were all like AAA lawyer, because the more A's you add, you're first in the alphabet. So it'd always be like, that's why I think AAA Motor Club probably came about. There was probably like a motor club,
totally.
and somebody's like, I'll raise you 2 A's, and then somebody says, no, I'll do 5 A's, and so they would do that. So in terms of that, like right now, obviously there's all these different platforms. There's Facebook, right? There's Google, which is Google reviews. There's Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, right? Those are the main ones, right? And then LinkedIn, which don't even get me started because I troll that place. I hate it. It's to me it's so fake, and all these people reach out to you and they want to meet with you, and then
But the thing about LinkedIn is that we have a friend who's very active on LinkedIn,
oh yeah,
and he's like, "Oh, you got to get there. There's tons of eyeballs." I'm like, "Dude, my people are criminals.
yeah.
They're not on LinkedIn, and criminal lawyers aren't on LinkedIn."
No, but it's always like, I'll send you a funny thing, like somebody made a video and it's just like, I am humbled to report that I am now the senior vice president. Thank you for putting your, like, get out of here. It just seems such like phony shit to me. I don't want anything to do with that. It's like everyone's got to stroke each other. So sometimes I put on there, I'm like, I'm pleased to report that my kid said I'm the best lawyer east of the Mississippi. Like, it's just like my website. It's like my son reviews me, hire my dad. It's horse shit. Like, just do good work. And, there are some good reviews that I put up, but I also know a lawyer locally that has a virtual office near mine who's been suspended from the practice of law, and he's got 100 perfect reviews. I wouldn't hire him to clean my toilets.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, people really need to dive deep into those reviews, and I have clients that have been impressed with our services and have said, look, if someone needs to hire you, have them call me. I'll explain exactly how I was treated, and so we've got a roster of 20 former clients that have volunteered to us to talk to people who are vetting their lawyers for trials. And
where do you have to be in terms of the digital space if you're going to survive the next 5 years? Where do you have to be?
So that's a really interesting question, and I think digital is getting more and more competitive. There's more and more money going into it. I think that it is possible. Obviously you need to have a good website so that people can connect with you. It's amazing to me how many small businesses, I'm not talking lawyers, I'm talking small businesses,
it's ridiculous,
don't have a picture of the person who provides the service on the website.
Tell me how important the picture is. Why is that important?
Because people connect with people. At the end of the day, we are all, and that's the thing, like, you can have an entirely functional, sustainable, scaled practice and never spend $1 on digital marketing. But you then have to take your time and attention and spend it on networking and relationship marketing. The truth is, marketing costs. It's either dollars or time or a combination of those things. And you've got to put in the effort on one of those platforms. So if you want to go all in on digital and display and that sort of thing, that's great. I mean, the reality is that anything will work if you actually put in the time to do it. But what I see is too many lawyers and too many small business people will just say, well, I'm going to do 6 weeks of Facebook ads. And after 6 weeks, this didn't work, so let's turn it off. And the reality is that you didn't give it enough time. You're expecting immediate results. You're building a brand. I mean, remember, for lawyers, at least, we are, in a 40, 50-year career. If you're my father, he's 50, years doing this. He could have talked to somebody 40 years ago that remembers, hey, now I need him. That's the guy to call. So you want to develop those relationships for the long term and not expect immediate results. And you could do the same thing. I mean, look, America Online built their entire business on direct mail.
That's
Groupon
right.
built their entire
those
business.
CDs. Remember the CDs?
Yeah.
200 hours free.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Groupon built their entire thing on an email distribution list.
All right, so get back
whatever you do, go all in on it.
So, but you were saying you got to have a good website, at least with a picture. Would you also agree? And by the way, I have this theory we have in the office. This is one of my Rich Rockland theories, but I think it's true. A lawyer that uses a Gmail or an AOL account is no bueno.
I would never hire anybody.
That's right.
Because
Jay, and you can have a domain and an email set up in 6 minutes, right?
Yes.
On GoDaddy. It literally, I've done it before for somebody. I'm like, why wouldn't you just have it branded? To me, it's like, if you won't do that or incapable of doing that, I can't hire you because it shows that you don't care, in my view.
Yeah. Oh, no, I'm 100% with you on that.
All right.
100%.
All right. So that's my working theory. So a picture to connect. a website, and then what about the socials? Where do you see
I
what's
mean,
hot now? What are people
it
doing?
really comes down to your comfort level with socials. You do a good job just being yourself on social media, and I think people connect with you because of that.
Mhm.
Social platforms are not free to get attention on them. If you're going to be on Facebook, and you want to get eyeballs of strangers, people who are going to find out about your services, you're going to have to pay to get in front of them. It's like you want to be on CBS on you have to pay for commercial time. That's just the nature of any media business. They're businesses. They're not they give it away for free when it first starts because that's how they get to critical mass. But for Instagram, Facebook, even LinkedIn, like if you want to be exposed to the most people, you're gonna have to pay. But when you pay for those things, you have to realize that it's a different message you're putting out there. People are not on those platforms to leave it to go look at your website. People are on those platforms to connect with other people, to pass the time, and so you have to give them the kind of stuff that they want to listen to. I tell people if you're going to be posting on social as a business, you should be talking about food, which you do, pets, you don't do, sports teams. That's a big topic area that people like to talk about, and travel. You talk a lot about travel. So you're hitting two of those four, which are the things that people want to talk about. Because in reality, you know, I talked to the guy who is, pumping my gas, and we don't have a lot in common, but we can talk about who's got the best wings or who's got the best steak locally.
By the way,
And so,
who does have the best wings locally?
I got to tell you, I was just in Vegas last weekend, and I had some wings that were phenomenal. A
I,
place called Citizens.
oh, I've heard of that.
Um,
I was in Vegas over the break, but I didn't get any wings. But I do like the Do Drop In down near you.
yes, do try. I mean, you can't go wrong. In fact, I need to get some wings. Now that's going to be my takeaway from this
I'm a
episode.
wing guy. Yeah, extra crispy, extra saucy.
Oh my God, dude, we are brothers. Extra crispy, extra saucy. That is the way to. All right,
And
so
by the way, and blue cheese only. No, don't give me that ranch shit.
Rich, we are brothers from a different mother. In the exact same way. You
Right.
got to go with the blue cheese. I
Right.
hate
And
the
so
my
food,
wife likes
one of the things that I've done, as you know, and we've talked about, is I've scaled from, just being like, Ryan or you, just sitting at that broken desk, wondering how you're going to keep the lights on, to having two associates and multiple paralegals and whatnot. I don't want to be a CEO per se. Like, I don't mind running the business. I enjoy going to work. I like running the business and growing it, but I also like lawyering. Like, I'm like your dad. So I like going to court, but I pick and choose now a little bit more that I have, that I'm training younger lawyers, and they need to observe me and how these things work. But I'm sort of at a place now that when I try a case, I think about it, but I don't. I used to get a thing in my belly. I don't get that anymore. Not because it's not. The nervous feeling, not the exciting
right.
feeling. It's just because I can go in and I know what's going to happen, and I know how to handle it and how to deal with the rules of evidence and all of those things. So I feel really good about it. But one of the things that I did was I started is putting, adding all my clients to my Facebook, and I made a decision. I said, look, I'm just going to live my life. I'm going to post my family. I'm public with them. Some people are, you have to decide what you're comfortable with. But I've always said, look, they're almost public figures in my world, and the clients are great, and they just say you have cute kids, they're nice, you're a dad, you're doing your thing, and then I check into court once in a while, and then you're just people are everyone in the morning you get up, first thing you do is start scrolling. Hey, what's up? Oh, Jay went here, Jay's there. Oh, that's
Yeah.
cute, you like it. But then you live rent free in their head, because as soon as there's an issue, somebody slides into the DMs and says, hey Rich, I need to talk to you. Or they'll say, my girlfriend of mine reached out to you, could I give him your number? Said, fantastic, do it. So I get a ton of business that way, just from being, as you said, genuine, right? Being who you are, and knowing that I care, and again, I'm not just going to put them into a machine to spit them out and take their money. I really, I give fair pricing, and I work hard for people and try to do good work. There's certainly competitors of mine that don't take that approach. They just completely gouge the file, and I can't, that's not in my gut. I can't do that. You could put a gun to my head, you'd have to shoot me. I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. I can
Well, you
make it.
got to live with integrity. I mean, and that at the end of the day, I'm very comfortable with where we are, what we're charging people, and the kind of work that we're doing for them. I feel I am not. I don't question our values as a law firm. And I think, as long as you can do that, which you are doing, I think it makes a difference. And I think people pick up on it. If you are who you are, online or off. It's
That's right.
those people who fake it online, and then you meet them in real life, and you're like, oh, this is not who you portray to be. You just have a distaste for them, and you just cut them out of your life. There's a reason why your circle is ever growing, Rich. I mean, it's
Well,
because you are who you are, and that's a good thing.
and I
I
also
hope to God, though, you have your kids on payroll
I
to
do.
be able to. Okay,
Yeah.
good, because they're a voice of your firm. They
No, they're
should
the
be.
voice, but yes, and I always tell my kids too. And I try to and again, I learned this from my grandpa. I didn't meet my dad until I was in my late 30s, and my grandpa was a big part of my life. I'm the first one in my family to go to college. He was he worked on industrial and residential boilers and furnaces. He was that's how I'm so handy. I can fix anything because he taught me how to solder at a young age, and so I fix stuff, and I have a
Oh,
good
so cool.
technical mind, and that's one of my hobbies. I can renovate a bathroom on the weekend. And instead of paying, you would kill me and say, look, pay for your time. Ryan always said, wealthy people know how to buy their time. But that's for me, I like doing it because it's relaxation and it helps me, sort of give me a break from the law. And I like building stuff. Um, and I also save a couple bucks, so it's good. But
Yeah,
but the point being that I tell my kids also, if you're always be I always tell them when I leave, always be kind, right? Kindness to me is such an important virtue, right? If it's a virtue, just be kind, because you treat people with kindness, they want to help you, right?
right.
So and again, this is where and this is sort of the message that I give to them, like in I'll call my guy, like I go out of my way to help people and be kind to them and treat them with dignity and respect. And then when I need to call my guy, I can get tickets to something that other people couldn't get. I can get a reservation that I couldn't get.
Right.
I've developed relationships with clerks that can give me their cell phone number so I can text them and say, hey, this thing is jammed up. I need this continuance. Nothing untoward, nothing ex parte, but I'm like, hey,
Right.
could you get this? Make sure, the other lawyer and I are like on tenterhooks waiting to see if something's continued. Could you make sure this gets in front of a judge? Sure, Rich, no problem. And that's not, everybody doesn't have that relationship because not everybody's kind. Not everybody has gone out of their way to the clerk that's, being treated like shit by the public every day and said, hey, I see you. I see your soul. I see what you're going through. I'm appreciative of you, and I'm going to treat you with dignity. And then people remember that, and that allows you to then operate in a court system or anywhere in life. Operate in a restaurant, right? Like you have connections to certain restaurants too.
Yep.
They know you tip well, you treat the staff kindly, and you walk in there and you're the fucking prince, right? You're Prince Jay.
For
You
sure.
go in and they say, you say, I want chocolate milk and truffles and bok choy, and that will come out in that
That will
order
come out.
because
Yeah.
you're the prince, right? You go in there and they do stuff for you, and they want to help you because you're kind, you're consistent, and you've built that relationship. Um, and so I think about that a lot. And I mean, would you agree with me too that like how kindness plays a role in your developing and growing your practice and practicing law as well?
Oh, it absolutely does. I mean, I keep telling my wife, we're like, and what it's like to be raising kids in this day and age. It's hyper competitive, and parents doing this, that, and the other thing. And I'm like, look, we need just to make sure we're not raising assholes.
Yeah. What do
Because
you? Let's talk about that. You have how many kids now? Four.
I have four.
Four, right? And so you talked me into a third, which is great because one of the things I do remember you saying is that you have an infinite capacity for love and knowledge, and that's true, right? You don't, and my middle
And that
daughter.
that is, I have that. That is something I will go to my grave. I want to put on my. I'm not going to have a grave, but I want people to take that. That you can always get smarter, and you can always have more love. And if you just chase those two things, your life will be
And my
complete.
middle child, as middle child often do, says to me, "Well, but who do you love the most?" and so you're like, "Doesn't work that way. I love everybody, And so
Right.
she doesn't understand. There's got to be, it's like you like a certain type of vodka better than the other, or whatever your thing is. So you like a certain type of wings. You certainly would have a favorite child, and then of course there's
I tell them that I have three amazing kids and one jerk, and the jerk changes every day.
every day. Right. So in terms of, I just want to focus on this just a little bit before we wind down, but in terms of raising kids, so four is a lot. We used to say anything beyond two is mental illness because it's
Yes, for
very, very
sure.
difficult. But, one of the things that my psychologist friends that I call routinely for advice on this is that, you get good reports from school and then they come home and you're just like, what the fuck did I like? Who are these people? Like, like, who are you? Like, why are you, you know, you don't even know what to say. It's so frustrating. And then, you know, you start, you know, sometimes you get sucked into fighting with them and you're like, what? And this is a disordered human, right? They don't have, their brain's not developed. And you're fighting like I'm fighting with you or something who's a developed man who should know better, right? But you're
Right.
fighting with the kid like they should know better and they don't. And you worry like, am I going to fuck this up? And I've reached the conclusion, and tell me if I'm wrong, there's no way to know if you're going to or not. You just have to
Uh,
hope for the best.
Look, I got a piece of advice early on, and they said, you know, there is nothing that you can guarantee doing as a parent with how your kids are going to turn out, but you are 100% responsible for the happiness level of your kid's childhood.
Right.
And so, you know, that falls 100% on your shoulders as a parent to make sure that they have a good childhood. And we've tried really hard, and it is a struggle. I mean, I'm dealing with issues with any kid, any one of my four kids at any day of the week. There's always something. I have a son, my older son. He loves music, and hates Spanish, hates it, can't concentrate in it, and so we're getting into fights saying, hey, you got to at least do your homework, dude. And he's just like, I hate it, I don't want to do it, but I'll go upstairs and I'll play my viola for an extra hour because I love this stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, you know what, if this kid was an adult, he wouldn't be taking Spanish because he knows what he doesn't like. You know what I mean? So I have to like, I know he has to do it, but I have to also take the long view, and have a short memory as a parent, that I'm raising them the right way, to be kind, to treat each other with respect, to value knowledge, to value love, and to be good people. And I have to have a short memory for those setbacks when I get a call from the teacher saying the kid hasn't done homework for 3 weeks.
But what about when they're not kind to each other? Doesn't that bothers me more than anything? They're fighting with each other and they're saying bad things to each other. And I always almost break down, and and I could be, I guess it's manipulative or whatever. I say to them, like, I failed as a parent when you're doing that. Like, and that's probably the bad thing to say, but it feels that way to me, right? It feels like I failed, like if they're not being kind to their own family members. But then, they go from being like in a domestic violence situation to being like, eloping in Vegas, at the Elvis
Yeah.
Chapel. And
I
so
have
how do
two
you
kids
resist
that
that? How do you, what do you,
I have two kids that are like oil and water. They constantly are fighting. And last night I came home and I'm like, what's going on in one of the bedrooms? And they're laughing and having such fun together, just the two of them. And I'm like, see, they do love each other. It's just they have strong personalities and neither one of them wants to kowtow to the other one. And so I got to just say, you know what? At the end of the day, I don't remember fighting with my siblings. I remember the fun times that we had. And so I'm hoping that that's the
that
same
helps,
thing
same
that.
thing, right? All right. So best piece of advice you can give me, the listeners, the world. I know that's a big sort of ask, but in terms of building a sustainable, profitable business that you can enjoy, but importantly, make more than a regular salary and grow it. What is, if you had to pick one thing, one idiom, one sort of missive, what would it be?
I would say don't do it for the money, because if you're doing it for the money, you'll be miserable, because you have to have an extrinsic joy in what you're doing to be able to get out of bed on those rough days. If you're just doing it for the money, you're not going to do it as well as you can. I don't practice criminal defense law for the money. I do it because I believe that people need help when they have had the worst day of their lives, but their worst day of their lives shouldn't define their entire lives. Right. So that's why I do it. I believe that there's no such thing as a person we should discard.
That's right.
I believe that I can help people who are going through tough times to get back on the track to be a positive citizen. So I believe in, and I also believe that the government overarching, is sometimes too much. And police officers, there are some great police officers, but there are also some jerks, just like in any profession. And I need to be there to protect, to stand in between the government coming down on my clients, because that's the role. We need people in that job. So I believe all those things, and money isn't one of them. Money is a byproduct of doing something that you love, doing it well, and paying attention to those things. But I couldn't be a personal injury lawyer. It's just not in me.
Not your
I couldn't
thing.
be a family lawyer. I did a divorce. I hated it. One divorce for a friend of mine, and it was terrible because I was just like, I don't want to do this. Same thing with PI. It's not for me.
So the key but that's not something you could acquire. It's got to be in your soul, right? It's got to
It's
be,
got to be in your soul.
you
I mean,
find
it
it,
really
and then
does.
you find it, and then drill down.
Yeah, exactly. That's the message.
Awesome. Jay, you're the best. I thank you for being one of my guys, one of my main guys, folks. This is one of my top guys, and sorry it's taken a while to get you on here. You
No,
should have been. You're one of the first 5, so apologize.
it's
And
all good. It's all
thank you for
good.
your friendship
I'm happy to be.
and for this good advice and sticking with me through this journey. You know how hard it is, but also allowing me to reach this point where I'm in a good spot. So I appreciate you for that.
It's a wonderful thing when you get to do things that you love for people who deserve it, and everybody can benefit.
Everyone can benefit.
Yeah.
Right, because it's when it first starts out, you know what it's like to scrape by, and it sucks. It sucks.
My firm made more money in 1 week this year than I made in my first 4 years of practice
Same.
combined.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's astounding to me.
Yeah, it could you gotta put your head down, and you're right. You gotta find something you like, and you gotta go all in. You gotta go all in on something.
Because
And-
if it's not something that you love,
right. I mean, then you're just you're crying in the parking lot when you're trying to walk into work in the morning, and that's no way to be.
Yeah. It's no way to live life. I'd rather make less money and be happy.
Brother, thank you.
Thank you, brother. Have a great one.
You too.